Hi, and welcome to the first ever edition Mountaintop We Review Races. This is Billy and Sam, and today we are going to review Atlantic City, New Jersey, from the mountaintops of Utah, which are basically the same thing.
I mean, the view is gorgeous. I don't know if it's showing through or not, but we tried to pick a place. The view out here is gorgeous,
spectacular.
This is the Friday after Atlantic City was on Sunday. We're in Utah we're doing a race we're in northern Utah. We're doing a race in southern Idaho tomorrow morning, and then one in Maple Valley near Seattle on Sunday.
So,
Atlantic City.
We're going to skip over the
we can't really talk in the check-in. I think it was probably the same, but we didn't go through the normal stuff. So let's just skip over that. We're assuming it's the same. It was dynamic numbers. We checked in late, and we got, last numbers.
Which, by the way, was fantastic.
It was a great spot.
The last numbers were amazing.
They were about the best spot we probably could have gotten in transition.
Yeah.
The numbers 1 through 20 got screwed.
Yeah, they were farther right.
Yeah.
Okay, so coming in, this race is at an old airport. Plenty of on-site parking. There is lots of room to spread out, so you got issues.
We're pretty sure there was even camping.
Yes, there was RVs, and some tents out there. So there's clearly some kind of camping option. Certainly, it's Atlantic City. There's plenty of hotels to stay at. But if you're feeling like camping, that was an option here too.
Transition. It was a big transition area. There were 1,650 people or so in it, which was probably pretty close to the max. They could have had 1,800 or so, but this was not going to be a 3,500 person race.
No,
so that's
no.
So you got that.
I feel like they had enough room. They could have moved stuff around. I think they could easily get 3,000. The way they had it set up, this was about max. But once again, you're on an airport and in a giant field, so you could
have made transition bigger. You're right. You're right. The way that we had transition, which I guess they knew how many people were going to be there. So.
Yeah.
Swim. Let's go ahead and talk about the swim. So it starts early, and let's talk about the swim. Let's just jump right into it.
Just jump right into it, or crawl right through it. Might be the proper. So this is a one-loop swim. In a intracoastal area, so tidal, marshy,
salt water for sure.
Yeah, brackish, and very salty brackish on the salty brackish side for certain. Going out, so we had reports of previous years with some bad waves and some other problems. So. It's highly variable, it was my understanding. Plenty of support. They had Visit Atlantic City rowboats were the support out there, so that was kind of interesting. One of them was sitting in the middle of the swim course after you made that turn, and I was kind of mad until I understood that there was a pole on the other side of him.
There was a pole.
So you were making sure we didn't hit that. So good for you for thinking that through. That might have been a little difficult to see. So after this was I don't know what to call it. It's not a boat ramp because it just had this sudden plunge. So it was probably outfall from the airport where all the water would go in, but about 1 foot, 2 foot deep, it just stopped and you jumped into the water.
Yeah, you were much better off just jumping in.
Yeah.
When you got to the edge of the water, we just dove in.
We found the edge because the guy in front of us fell off of it. It's like, oh, that's where it is. Thanks, guy. But they were only releasing us in groups of 5, so that part was fine. So self-seating again. So you came back around that first buoy, and tidal. This was low tide. We found I don't know what to call it.
You got to call it mud. That's really what it was. Yeah.
I swear I felt clams. I was feeling stuff. I'm not that big a guy. The bigger guys were really complaining because you're arm length. There's a lot of spots I could not get a full stroke in.
No. I was swimming. I was definitely swimming.
And you had some people. It's muck mud, not like
Yeah, it's not like you could stand up and walk through
it.
I mean, you stood up and your legs went down past your knees.
Yeah. That was thoroughly disgusting. I hated it. I don't know what else to say about that. And that lasted from the back of the swim course. I don't, maybe a solid, quarter of the swim course was through that crap.
Yeah.
And so the person in front of you turned it up as they're swimming. I mean, you're turning it up for the person behind you. So if you're fast, get out front because you're not going to want to swim through that. Both of us tried weaving. My map from this course looks wild because the way out, it's reasonably straight, and then you hit that, and I'm just trying to find a spot that we can swim. But
it was wetsuit legal. All that being said, we didn't like the swim, but it was one of the fastest swims that we've done in the ocean. So
yes.
So I don't know why, but
probably
it was,
get out of that crap.
It was pretty fast for us, and I think it was pretty fast for a lot of people. So just keep that in mind that low tide is you're going to get into some muck. If it's high tide, maybe you're going to have some waves. So that's just be prepared for that.
I called it my least favorite swim that we've done. Not ever, but this year. For this year, certainly.
So coming back in, you had that. It was a different side, but you had that same ledge that you had to deal with, and they had people picking you up.
Yeah,
so just be sure.
That dude yanked me out of here, and I'm a big guy, so pick a strong one. But yeah, there was exact same ledge you had to crawl up. So it was you had a little jog to transition.
Yeah, it's pretty good ways. Are we rating this as we go along, or
we should?
Yeah, I mean, I'll give it a 5. I mean, it was
You're
fast.
You're gonna give that swim a 5.
Yeah, I mean, the one thing that we talk about is that Ironman cannot control the weather, and that's I don't know that they can control the tide.
But the tide is a known thing, right? They knew what the tidal level was going to be. I mean, the Aztecs could have figured it out if they needed to.
Yeah, but I mean, so taking the tide out of it, the layout of the course, it was a clockwise course. Yeah. Plenty of room. They did the self-seating. I didn't feel like I got swam over. They had plenty of boats out there if you had trouble. And it ended up being pretty fast for us. So I mean, yeah, I'm not giving it a 7, but I'm giving it a 5.
Okay. That's
a lot higher than you're giving it?
Yeah, I'm giving it a 3. Okay. That's a solid 3 banana swim on me.
All right, moving on.
That was storm the fort level bad, really.
All right, moving on to the bike.
So the bike, you tell us about that.
Okay, so you go out. So first of all, this is let's talk about transition. So transition, it's a standard transition except for you hop on your bike and you ride out of this airport. And I'm going to tell you that the ride out of the airport is about 3/4 of the mile. And the reason I know that is because that 3/4 of a mile does not count for your 56 miles on the bike.
Your bike.
And so it's 3/4 of a mile out and then 3/4 of a mile back in, neither of which count on your bike. I mean, I get that kind of, in that you don't want the transition area. If you've got 50, I mean, that was a 57.5 mile bike, but you don't want the transition area counting against you on your bike time. So you get your times on your email afterwards, and you see your bike time, and it was the 56 mile course that was on the roads and not on the airport. But bro, that kind of messes with your head when you know that you got an extra 1.5 miles in there on the bike that you weren't planning on. So anyway, so you come out on the bike, and it's a 3-loop course. And I don't hate the design of the course. With 3 loops, the first loop you pick your line, and if it's a good line, you do it the second time to confirm. If it's not a good line, you try a different one. And the third time you come through, you ought to have a line of exactly where you're going to go and not have any trouble. I mean, I guess the issue is if the only problem I really had was when I was passing somebody, and so I went on a line that was not my normal line, and I got into some crap that, I mean, it was like gouges in the pavement going long ways that I thought that I was going to wreck. I mean, I made it through, and I'm not saying very nice words, and the guy beside me is like, "Are you okay?" And I'm like, "No, I'm not okay," but I'm keeping going. So 3-loop course, a couple of cool notes about it is you go through the toll plaza 6 times. So it's like a highway or whatever that has a toll thing, and you go out, go in a circle, come back, and go through it again. Go out, circle. So you do that. So it's 3 loops, 6 times you go through the toll plaza. And you don't have to pay a toll each time. You don't have to pay a toll at all. So that was kind of cool. The cars are looking at you like, how do you get to go through there? Because you're taking up a lane of their highway, too. They block off a lane of the highway. It is a little more hilly than what we were led to believe. I think our Garmin's or Training Peaks or whatever said 1,100, 1,200 feet of climbing, which was more than people said that it was going to be like 700 or something. So we think they changed the bike course a little bit for this year. So know that it is a little bit more climbing than what it has been in the past. It was windy. I didn't enjoy the bike ride. I don't think it was the course. I guess maybe I was just looking forward to an easy bike ride, and it just was not an easy bike ride. By the time I got off the bike, I was just mentally done. Now, mind you, this was the second race in 2 days, so I mean, there's some fatigue. There's some fatigue involved there too. But I got out of the swim, and I had a really good swim time for me. And I'm like, oh well, I've heard this course is flat. Maybe this is going to be a PR. And I got off the bike, and I knew it wasn't going to be a PR. I mean, and that's kind of messes with you mentally. So just understand that, it's really weather dependent. There wasn't a lot of shade on the course. It was relatively cool, but the sun was out. It was hard, and we'll talk about it in the stories. But so check out our next video. But I had a dude fly past me, and he had a flat tire. He's got a flat tire, and he's flying past me. So that's how tough the bike was.
Yeah,
for me.
We need to mention that this race had
the
most mechanicals I've ever seen. I mean, I was noticing a lot, and so I started counting. And after I started counting, it was more than 20. So I don't know how many it was, but significantly more than 20 because.
Yeah,
it was a bunch. I mean, you usually see a few, but
you have to go over some rumble strips a few times. So maybe people caught up in some debris in the rumble strips. There were some things they could have changed. I would have put a mat over so there were places where they forced you to go over the rumble strips. Yeah. You should put a mat there.
Yeah.
I don't know if
those rumble strips weren't that. Oh yeah. Sorry, the actual there were rumble strips that were
in the road, like on the edge of the road.
Thermoplastic.
Yeah, those weren't that bad.
They weren't bad, but they had the divot rumble strips on the side, and you did have to go over those. And they were encouraging you to bike. In fact, they were saying it flat out: bike on the shoulder on that side of the rumble strips. But there were parts of it where there was a lot of trash over there, so they had a lane closed off for us. So my first lap, the fast people who were not on their first lap had already figured that out to be on the road. So my second and third laps, I stayed on the road, and so did everybody else. But yeah, you have a variety of road from where we were on that toll road was some of the best asphalt I've seen. To some of those turns were just terrible. When it was bad, it was not bad for very long. So overall, I'm going to say these road conditions were reasonably good. So I have no idea why there were so many mechanicals. And maybe it's a late season race. It's probably worth a bike tune-up, tire changeover if this is an important race for you. And certainly, 90 is my recommended PSI, 6.5 for our European friends. It's never worth putting. I know your tire says 130. Don't, but
All right, so you got a rating on the bike?
This is the first 3-loop bike we've had. I actually liked it more than I thought that I would. The headwind sucked. I never felt a tailwind, and so I don't think it was ever a pure headwind. It was just quartering the whole way, so you never really got great. So I'm with you. This is probably I'm going to give it a 5.5. Let's go 5.5 on the bike. A reasonably good bike. Certainly some areas they could improve on. And I liked the 3-loop course. I would do 3 loops again. That made it a little interesting. So
yeah, with the 3 loops, similar to the out and backs, you get to see where you are compared to your competition. So I didn't mind that because you would think that maybe it'd be kind of boring, and it wasn't a scenic route, so it's not like you wanted to see it 3 times. But I'm not sure they could have. I mean, this is Atlantic City. I don't know where they could have put it where it was going to be scenic. I mean, maybe going up and down the ocean or something. But you got it on the run. So anyway, 5.5 was my score too. I would if you're a race director and you're watching this, I actually prefer the 3 loops over the U-turn out and backs.
Yes.
Because at least with the 3 loops, you're not having to slow down to basically stop and doing a U-turn and then coming back. So if you have a choice of doing extra loops or doing U-turn out and backs, then I would prefer the extra loops.
Fair enough. So the run, on to the run. The run was entirely on the boardwalk. Sorry, that's not fair. There was the part from transition from T1 and T2 are in the same place.
And that was a mile. It really was a mile to get from T1 or the transition to.
So yeah, you did a little bit. They added a little extra on the inside of the airport to clearly get their mileage that they wanted, and then the rest of it is on the boardwalk. There were a couple of times you left it's a boardwalk. It's actually huge as far as a. This was actually a wooden boardwalk.
Yeah.
And as far as that goes, it's huge, wide, but not wide enough for runners going both ways and aid stations. So they had you come off of the boardwalk to get aid and then get back on a couple of times on the way up. Then you came down, you passed
You went on the
finish line.
You went on the pier first.
You did go on the pier.
The fishing pier, which that was pretty cool. You go out to the ocean. It was really windy, which kind of felt nice because it was a little hot. So you got a blast of wind to kind of cool you down as you go around the fishing pier.
And so elevation up the fishing pier to go out.
Yeah, and it was.
That was the two hills on the course, was that, and then you went through this building's. I don't know what to call that.
Was the building even open? It was like a condemned building or something. I don't know. Or are they construction on it?
Atlantic City is a very unique place, is what we'll go with.
Yeah.
It looks to me it's in transition. They had the big hotel casinos on the ocean, on this boardwalk, and clearly they're not feasible because they have built new casinos. They're just off of the ocean, so all of that salt spray and whatnot was just killing them. So you have some derelict buildings, some reasonably nice buildings, and then houses, all within clearly 6 miles of each other. So very, very interesting from our perspective. But you went after you passed the finish line, you went inside of whatever this very strange building was, and came back around, back on the boardwalk out. And that second out past the finish line felt like forever to me. I knew it was 5 miles. There's no shade. Whatever you went on outside of this building, which was maybe less than a quarter of a mile, is the only shade on the entire course. So if it's warm, it's going to be warm. But you've got all the sun. So plan for that. Know that. It wasn't. It was warm, but it wasn't overly hot. But certainly, that was a tough. Maybe looking at the course ahead of time, kind of knowing where that turnaround would help. I knew when we passed that finish line, I think it was 5 miles was what we had left. So I knew we had 2.5 miles left. So none of that was a surprise. 2.5 out and then back. But that was tough. That was a very tough run for me.
So I'm going to give the run a higher score than it's going to sound with the way that I talk about it, because I did not enjoy the run. I'm pretty sure they were talking on Facebook or something that this might be the hottest that the race has ever been. It was not overcast. It had sun. Hottest being it was still in like the upper 70s, low 80s. It was not. It was not brutally hot at all. But the sun took it out of you, and there was no shade on the run. I did not enjoy the run, but I didn't even see the finish line when I passed it the first time. Yeah. So that probably kind of helped that you didn't see it and have to go run away from it. And there was a guy at the end, Scott. Thanks, man. He pulled me the last 2 miles. He literally dragged me to the finish line. So it was just brutal for me. I was already mentally spent from the bike. I was out on the run. I knew it wasn't going to be a PR. And so you just have to kind of suffer through it. All that being said, if it's in the low 70s or overcast or something, it's really a great run course because you're on the boardwalk. You've got spectators that can be there. They can be drinking, eating, whatever they want to do, and they can see you come by a few times. It's actually a well thought. It's teak wood or whatever that you're running on. It kind of gives a little bit, so it's kind of cushiony as you're going down. Much better than asphalt, I would say. And
I loved it. I did not move that run course.
So Ironman can't control the weather, so you can't really take off for that. So for me, I didn't like the run, but I'm gonna give it a 6 because I I like the run course, and I think with maybe a little bit different weather, I would have been happier.
I'm absolutely with you on the 6. Yeah, I hated it. This finished in the sand, and I would have liked to have seen some mats. It's soft sand at the finish line.
So finish line. Let's talk about the finish line. It's after you come through that building the second time. I mean, right after you come through the building, you kind of make a U-turn and you go down onto the beach. And you go down onto the beach and you're running 50 yards or
Maybe
so.
50 yards, yeah.
Soft sand, super soft sand, where you're having to kind of chug through it. It makes your feet feel like they're 100 pounds. Some people were taking their shoes off. I wasn't smart enough to do that. I didn't even realize that was an option. I was just so done with the run that I was ready to get it and just be through. Scott, as we're on that last 2 miles, I'm talking to him, and he's like, "Have you ever had a beach finish?" And I was like, "What do you mean beach finish?" He's like, "Where you finish on the beach." And I'm like, "No." He said, "So this will be your first one?" And I'm like, "Okay. Does this thing finish on the beach?" Mind you, we had already passed the finish line. I mean, went right by it. And I just didn't even pay attention. I was just so, let's get this, mileage done or whatever. So that may have even helped me on the last, because I knew on my watch where we were at, and I knew how many miles we had left. So I don't know. I mean, it's kind of like Augusta, I guess, where you pass the finish line several times before you actually go through it.
So, yeah, there's nothing to say about that. It's just hot.
Yeah. But
so
as far
finish
as
line swag.
Yeah, so you got Ironman Atlantic City hats, so we're super excited that they've done this. They've been doing this for the last several races.
Still, congratulations on your 2020 finish. This is a...
oh, is that what it says?
Yeah, yeah.
And the medal's pretty cool.
The medal is actually really cool. I really like this one.
It has the I don't know if I can get it up in there, but it has the Ferris wheel, what do you call this thing?
Yeah,
Ferris wheel, yeah, up on there.
With kind of like an old-time postcard of Atlantic City.
I mean, it has this is like the boardwalk area or whatever of Atlantic City. So that was cool. You did get at check-in. You got a T-shirt. This was a black T-shirt. Standard Ironman, just the Ironman stuff on the front, nothing on the back. And then you got a bag, and it's this.
This is funny.
It's the standard Ironman dry bag.
Standard Ironman dry bag. But the ones from earlier this year were black with a red pocket, and so now this is red with a black pocket, which I actually like a lot better.
But it at least has Atlantic City on it.
Has the Atlantic City on it. We appreciate it. We're good.
As long as it has Atlantic City on it, I don't care if it was purple with a yellow pocket. It's actually purple with a yellow pocket would be pretty cool.
Yeah, we got that too. That was Colorado.
Especially for LSU fans. All right, so overall score for the race?
Coming into this, we had really high expectations. Lots of people have said they love this race. This race, as far as the city was concerned, we'll score that after, but the race director did a phenomenal job. There was not one issue, other than I'm going to argue the tide, that was inside of his control that I had. Right, the streets belong to the city. Maybe the mats at the finish line, that's just a bonus thing. Yeah, I've got to give this thing. So we came in expecting this was going to be a 7 race. This is going to be amazing. And then to have those issues, I still got to give this 5.5. It's probably better than that. Being the second race and having high expectations, I think hurt it more than I'm allowing for. What do you got?
Yeah, I don't want to give it a 6 because I gave the run a 6 even though I didn't like it, but that was the only 6 that I gave out. So it's got to be a 5 3/4, I guess. It's higher than a 5.5, but less than a 6. 5 3/4. They're like, I mean, I'm not even mad about the tide. I mean, if this is the weekend that Atlantic City allows this race to be put on, then that's yeah. I mean, and you just know that there's low tide, and I'm not sure. I mean, they could have in an athlete briefing told people about that. We weren't there for that, so I don't. Maybe they did, and if they did, then kudos to them. But certainly be aware of the low tide. It was windy, it was hot. Those are weather things. I mean, as far as what Ironman can do to change the race, I don't even know if I'd change that swim course because I kind of liked the way that it was set up, the way that
The
it
way
went
it
in
laid
and
out was
out.
good.
So I'm giving it a 5 3/4. I guess if the weather was a little bit better, it had potential for a 6. And maybe if it was the only race that we had done that weekend we had.
And it could be a 6.5.
Yeah, it might have even been higher.
I think it could have. I don't know. 6.5 is pushing it. I don't think I could have gotten there. But yeah, I'd recommend the race.
Should do
I
it.
would do the race again. It was. I flew out of Philadelphia. So it's like $80 worth of tolls to get from Philly to Atlantic City. That's a
There
marginal
are
exaggeration.
a lot of tolls. Go ahead and if you're driving anywhere in the Northeast, go ahead and get you an easy pass.
Easy pass. So just be aware that there are costs associated with, because it was a whole lot cheaper to fly into Philadelphia than it was to fly into Atlantic City. But other than that, this was the city itself. They did a great job marking lanes for us, giving us our own lane. I had no issues with cars. I had the boardwalk.
That could have been better.
Yeah, they had a lane. We had plenty of wide lane, and they had it coned off for us.
Not the whole boardwalk, but parts of it.
The parts of it, yes. The people that were also using the boardwalk,
I mean, come on. There's no reason for you to walk 4 wide when you know there's a race going on.
Yeah.
I mean, the 4 wide took up more than a whole lane. So,
yeah.
I'm sorry we're interrupting your beach weekend, but this race was probably scheduled before your beach weekend. So
I don't know how you deal with that. There's nothing. That's just some of this.
That's the only complaint I have about the city, really.
Yeah. No, the people were great. Everybody that we came in contact was very friendly. Got lots of cheers from people not associated with the races. We're going up and down the boardwalk. So, you just had some people not paying attention or whatever. And certainly, I recognize that we've all got to share that space. And you've got people working out, you've got people biking, you've got people walking around. So even with that, some of that could have been better. I recommend that race. Stay tuned. We got
all kinds of stories.
Good stories for this one. So watch for our stories video. Thanks, guys.